Hello there YouTube, it's me, Keltick, back again today with another Smite guide to help you get a wrap on this game. Today I am covering a requested topic, and that is beginner mistakes and how to fix them. So I'm going to give a list of beginner mistakes and I'm going to quickly explain what I think you should be doing instead, or how you can begin to work and practice so that these mistakes don't affect you as much. Now, before we dive in, if you do enjoy the type of content that you're going to see in this video, consider subscribing to the channel because I do a guide like this every Friday, but that's enough preamble, let's dive into the guide. So, a common mistake or complaint that I get from newer players that I talk to is that they continuously are getting ganked and do not know how to avoid this. This is quite normal and it all comes down to familiarity and awareness, but this ganking can be prevented if you take the right steps, and here's just a couple things that can help you out. So first on this list is warding. New players rarely even know that wards exist in the game, but honestly wards are so great and give you so much information about the enemy. Now, quick note, remember that you can only have 2 wards active on the map per player at a time, but when you have to place the wards is what's really important here. How and when is the most important part of warding. So for instance, I only ward after I've been successfully ganked. That is, I got caught off guard and got killed by the jungler or the support, but I do not buy wards if I took a stupid fight. Like if I'm up by their tier 2 and I get killed, that's not my fault. I'm not going to magically ward that high up. Now, make sure you use wards. I'm going to say this again, use wards. New players don't use wards. If you use wards, you will improve because you're going to be inherently doing more of the next and just as important tip, look at the map. So, now that you've warded, you have to be able to use the vision that you're giving yourself. So you have to look at the map. Map awareness is a skill that can be learned. You know that the enemy has 5 players on it. So if they are visible on the map, you can know that in that moment, they are not going to gank you. Again, basing this off of personal experience, whenever I am not actively fighting something, I am looking at the map constantly to see where the opponents are. The map is honestly the most necessary thing in the game, and if you want to take your game to the next level and you want to stop things like ganks from happening to you, if you look at the map more, you're going to find that it might happen to you less because you'll be able to retreat accordingly. So the last thing that I'm going to touch on in regards to not getting ganked is positioning, and here's the Season 4 Conquest map. This is where I'm going to do this example. So we're going to focus on the left lane just because it's right on the edge and really easy to reference. So when we're looking at this lane, there's a lot of things that you could do, right? Your mindset needs to be as follows at all times. If I got ganked right now, how many seconds does it take me to get back to my tower or a point of safety? So any tower on the map, right? If your answer to that question is more than 10 to 15 seconds, you probably shouldn't be there by yourself. Now, do note that this only works in early levels because as the levels increase, tower diving gets even easier to do, and it's really risky early on for the enemy. But those towers have to be that line of safety in your mind. But like I said, the later the game goes, the easier it's going to be to get dove. But if you're under tower, you can always hope and pray that your team shows up, because you're giving your team the advantage. So now we're going to talk about cooldown usage. Basically, all abilities and relics have cooldowns associated with them, and as a new player, you are going to fit into one of 3 categories. First, you either don't know relics exist, to which I say I'm going to be doing a video on relics in the future, or you have another group of people where they buy their relics but don't ever use them, and then third, you get to use your relics and ultimates at every single chance you get because you want to look flashy. So this is where I'm going to spit some wisdom at you now. Don't throw out ultimates and relics without any purpose. Don't use your Zeus ult on one person if they have 10 health left if your teammate is obviously going to be able to clean them up. Ultimate abilities are named as such because they are meant to be able to turn the tide of battle and make you into a threat. And then relics are a whole other battle. When you have your relics and you are about to use them, you have to think and ask yourself, am I actually going to get out of this? Or, if I use this relic, am I going to get out of this? For instance, if you are a god that has no escape, and you get rooted in lane and then are attacked by the entire enemy team, and you think to yourself, well shit, I have no hope of getting back to my tower. Then don't use your relics. This allows you to keep your relics. They have an incredibly long cooldown, and if you keep your relics to be used in a fight later, they're going to be way more useful to you then. Admittedly, this is a very hard subject to give a definitive answer on because of the vast amount of different circumstances that exist in any given game at any given time. But with more experience in the game, and when thinking about those two specific questions that I just touched on, you might get to save yourself a little bit more often with that specific cooldown or relic. So finally, we are going to talk about the flow of a general game and then communicating in it. As I have mentioned in the past, communication is a huge part of being successful in Smite games, and there are different types of communication. Now, often I see new players that blatantly don't listen to instruction, and then they proceed to be toxic because they get into a bad mood, or I don't know, someone crapped in their cereal or something. Don't get so self-involved that you cannot take criticism or advice. And then there's a sidebar here. If they are being toxic, then fuck them, but generally the advice shouldn't sound too malicious. But anyway, yeah, as a general note, don't be toxic and be open to criticism. Now, if you're going to be more open, you are going to be able to have an easier time dealing with the next often made mistake, which is not listening. In a game, teamwork is very important. And also in life, in the workforce, you are often going to have to go along with decisions that you don't necessarily agree with. But it is better to have all 5 of you going for the fire giant way too early and going against your better will than to have 3 of you try and the other 2 are screaming nonsense the whole time, pinging you and all that other crap. It's almost like I have experience with this, whatever. Anyway, again, there are exceptions to this, like don't dive phoenixes at 5 minutes, for instance. But again, being open is important. Don't be afraid to take risks. Finally, this last one pertains specifically to game flow itself. If your team is telling you to group up, please group up. It comes down to that listening thing again. And then more specifically than that, never split push if you're not told to. Now, if you haven't heard of split pushing yet, that's okay, because I will explain split pushing in another video because it does have some use. But seriously, as I just finished saying, being grouped up as a 5-man team is much better than having one person in God knows where pushing down the waves. Anyways, that's all the time that I really have for this video. We covered a lot of basic mistakes that I see people making, but if there's anything that you have and want specific clarification on, like, hey, how do I stop being ganked, for instance, then leave it in the comments. I will cover it in a video in the future. I don't know what I'm going to cover next week, but there will be a guide next week, so subscribe so you don't miss it. But anyways, that's all the time that I have. This is Keltick, signing off. Have a casual day.